let me just basically thank the Hampshire Chamber for allowing me to run this workshop for you. It's designed to be interactive at the end and engaging throughout. So I'm just going to click on the slides. So the first slide, basically, it's all about keeping culture alive and employees motivated during COVID-19. So my sense of humour is kicking in already. You can see I've got a child tied down on the right-hand side and a child engaged on the left. So what that tells us is people are going to behave differently around their motivations when they go home, and it's about us understanding their motivations and not second guessing it. So understanding exactly what's going on with them so that we can harness those motivations, keep people engaged, and actually keep our staff rather than lose them. So let me just tell you a bit about myself and why I do what I do. So my background was health and fitness management. I was with Fitness First PLC when we had one club on the South Coast. I left when we were the largest in the world. We did it in 7 years. We went through the AIM, the full listing, and we were opening a club a week at 1.2 worldwide. So I experienced fast growth in all its glory and all its nightmares. I left in about 2001 when the city got hold of it, and it was more about the shareholder than it was about the people coming into the gyms. So I became that demotivated employee that left. I took my share options and I didn't do anything for 6 months. I walked up and down the seafront near where I live in Warsash with my Jack Russell, looking like a hobo, thinking, well, what do I do now? I started to think I could help a few companies with their growth. So I started coaching companies on how to grow their organizations. I had a bit of success, and then I was approached by an international coaching organization called Sherlaws. They specialized in SME growth, small to medium-sized business growth, and they were coming across from Australia, and I joined them, and all their tools, methodologies, and techniques mapped perfectly the Fitness First journey. So I had the toolkit plus the experience. But 3 years in, I realized I was working with fast growth clients. And one of the things that struck me was that was missing in all of this was actually when you have fast growth, you need to keep your talent and you need to attract talent. And that was a stumbling block and a pinch point for a lot of businesses. So I started to look at employee engagement, motivation, and leadership in organizations. So I left Sherlaws and set up Skills for Business. And my work attracted the government task force team in about 2010 that were looking at employee engagement in the UK because it was so poor. Only 1 in 3 people going to work were engaged. So I spent 3 years co-chairing that, and there was some fantastic research that was coming in of companies that were doing it well. I took that research and I built a course, and I went down to my accountant in Poole, Inspire Professional Services, and asked them whether I could play with this stuff for a year or so with them. And we transformed their business through their efforts and the toolkits, and it really worked well for them. And then I was put into their top client, Ace Technologies. We did the same. I did a year working with the board and senior management team on employee engagement strategies. And again, we transformed their business so much so that they actually got sold. So I'm not sure that was a good thing or a bad thing. And then I got approached by Routledge to write a book. So if you look at the title here, Motivation for Engagement, I wrote it with a guy called James Sell, the founder of Motivational Maths, which I'll be talking about. And we wrote that and it got published. So now I work with companies on engagement, but I've taken the engagement angle and I've looked at COVID, and that's why I want to take this now. So that's enough about me, and let's get on with the workshop. So basically, I'm going to start looking at change first of all. So if you look at this cartoon, as funny as it is, that machine gun is probably your staff. And if we're not paying attention to our staff because we're fighting battles, then those staff won't be there when we come out the other end. So it's really about how do we keep our staff engaged. Now, most of you will know the change curve, but I'm going to talk about the change curve just in case anybody's not aware of it. So basically, if you look at this in COVID terms, first of all, when COVID came on the scene, there was an immobilization. There was kind of like a bit of a shock, a bit of a horror. And then there was a period of denial where actually, yeah, that's over in China. It's not going to happen here. We're okay. We'll carry on. And then the frustration and powerlessness of actually COVID is happening. And we've got to start to deal with it. And then there's a point of acceptance where actually, yeah, it's not going away. We're going into lockdown and it's going to get worse probably before it gets better. So it's about the testing out of the new and then the new way of working. So that's the change curve. And it's an emotional roller coaster. So there will be this denial, anger, frustration going on. And then this period of understanding and letting go and then trying out new things, which is where we are now with a lot of people. And then this total integration. So if you manage to team, what we want to do is create a curve that's more like keeping performance high through all of this, and that's what I'm going to focus on. We don't want to poorly lead our teams. We want to lead our teams well through this. So that's the focus of this workshop. Now, there's lots of evidence to understand why employment engagement is useful, but a lot of you will be familiar with Glassdoor. Glassdoor is where anybody, past or present employee, can say what they like about your company, and you've just got to take it on the chin or smile. But what's important is before COVID-19, those companies that were performing well on Glassdoor had outperformed the FTSE by 115%, which tells you if you get your staff engagement right, your profits will be good also. The other thing that's interesting with stats that were coming out was 82% of senior managers regarded demotivated employees as one of the 3 greatest threats facing their business. Well, you can imagine what it's like now if all your staff have gone home. You don't know whether they're motivated or not. You don't know whether they're challenged or supported in the right ways. So this will be an even further worry for any manager. And finally, as many as 47% of employees stay in a job they dislike for fear of having no other option. Well, if you are not looking after your staff right now, what will happen is they will be getting their CVs, they'll be reflecting, they'll be looking around, they'll be looking at options. So we do need to keep in touch with our staff throughout of this and make sure that we have them at the end. And the reason that is people leave jobs is 64% of employees leave their bosses rather than their jobs. So how we lead and manage through this will determine whether we keep our talent. Now, I'm going to talk to you about what the government task force found, because I think it's very, very relevant to COVID-19 right now. So there's a visible empowering leadership. So this is the first thing they found in organisations that really were harnessing the full potential and capabilities of their people. So this is about having a story. Now, SMEs have great stories. You know why you started your business. Don't forget why you started your business. You started it for a reason. Don't forget that. And your story so far, don't forget to tell it. Because when we move fast and grow, we forget to tell our story. So don't forget to have your story, communicate it, where you've been, where you are, where you're going. The next thing they found was these organisations that were harnessing people engaged their staff really, really well. So they focused on their people, they gave them scope, they treated them as individuals, and they coached, motivated, and stretched their people. So really, this one is key now. You might have a manager's title, but are you really an engaging manager? This is almost like a daily task now for you with your staff. Then we have employee voice. So these companies that really were harnessing full potential listened to their staff, involved their staff, and their staff felt that they can contribute. And there was they got rid of the blame culture. And then the last one is the values, or organizational integrity. We all have a set of values. This is the time right now with COVID to bring those values out, dust them off, and really live and breathe them. And not say one thing and do another. So that's what they kind of found in organizations that were really harnessing the full potential and capabilities of their people. I'm going to skip this once I've spoken about it. So I produced a wheel of engagement, which is now a wheel of COVID. And the way this works is if your company has a story, you give it a tick on a ring 10. If it doesn't, it's 0. If you're not sure, it's somewhere in between. So right now we need to bring out our story. Now, the reason we need to tell our story is because of what Napoleon said years ago. He said, I can't get people to die for money, but I can get them to die for a medal. People need a cause. They need to be attached to something. They need to have something to believe in. So making them believe in your organization, and then your organization is going to sustain through this, is critical, and telling your story is critical. So just score yourself out of 10. Do you have a story? The next thing is a clear vision. Now, prior to COVID, I would have said we're looking at a 3-year vision. Right now, it's almost like what Boris Johnson's doing. It's actually a daily update on where the company is, what we're doing, how we're tackling it, as well as a long-term vision of what we'll look like when we come out of it. Now, it's okay having a story and a vision, but that needs to be totally communicated throughout your whole organization. So you should be telling, all your staff should be aware of it, and actually all your customers as well. You should be talking to your customers about your vision and your story also. So maybe stick it on your website. The next thing is engaging managers. So do you have managers with a title that do it when they've got time, or do you have engaging managers that do it on a day-to-day basis? Right now, we need engaging managers that are talking and managing their staff well, because remember that stat, 64% of people quit their bosses, not their jobs. So they're quitting their managers, they're quitting you if you're not managing them well. And those managers need to coach, motivate, and stretch. Now, right now, I had a conversation with someone this morning, another webinar I was on, where we were talking about stretching. A lot of staff want to contribute. They want to feel they've got something to do, so they need to be stretched. Stretched but supported at the same time. So give them things to do. They'll be sitting there twiddling their thumbs, wanting to be involved. And we know productivity is quite low at the moment throughout, so find them things to get involved with. The next thing is employee voice. So you need to be listening to your people. So a lot of companies cascade information and expect staff to get on with it, but this is a reversal of that. Start listening. All your staff have gone home. Are their situations at home conducive? Do they have the right equipment? Can they work from home? Have they got the right space? How are they feeling? All that stuff needs to be listened to, understood, and their ideas. They can really come up. None of us know the solution right now, but some of your staff may have some cracking ideas. So listening to your staff. Then we come to a set of values. Everybody's got a set of values these days, so that's probably a 10. But the next one is, are we bringing those out? We really need to live and breathe these values right now, because they're critical. It's what we stand for. It's our DNA as an organization. So we should be dusting these off and getting evidence of those living and breathing and consequences and rewards in place, so that we get staff fully behind the values. So that's the wheel, and this is a kind of an 8-point plan. Once you've scored yourself on it, you can join the dots up, and if you've got a perfect wheel, you can leave the call. But if you haven't got a perfect wheel, it will identify where you need to improve. And if that was a wheel going down the road, once you've joined the dots up, how's it going? So this is a kind of a COVID wheel of just a way of thinking, a strategic way of thinking. So now I'm going to move to the motivational section, and hopefully motivation of your staff is why you're on this call, as well as a strategy. So we're going to look at what motivation is. So you'll know of personality profiles. The profile I do is a 15-page report on people's motivation. It takes 12 minutes to do, and we can work out where their energy is flowing. So a personality versus motivation. Personality profiles look at your behaviors at work, but motivation looks at why you come into work in the first place. And because motivation looks at why you come into work in the first place, it's changeable and dynamic. It's not fixed and stable like personality. So to give an example, Bill Gates is in third world countries giving his money away. Has his personality changed? No. Has his motivation? Yes. So our motivations change all the time. And right now with COVID, there's a lot of change in motivation right now going on. So I'm going to explore this in more detail. Now, what happens in organizations is we can measure bottom line. We can measure sales and marketing. We can measure production, but how do we know our people are performing? It's a bit of a conundrum. So we need to know that we're getting the performance from our people we expect. Now I'm going to show you the next diagram. This diagram, you can take any member of your staff, including yourself, and put it in one of these 4 boxes, and it'll give you a clue what you need to do. So let's just start with high motivation, low skill. Right now, if you have someone who's highly motivated, low skilled, it's just a case of training. But in COVID terms, we have highly motivated staff that are now gone home, and they've got a whole bunch of new skills, a whole new world to grapple with. So make sure that we have given them the tools, the techniques, and the skills right now to cope at home, and the education they need. The next thing is, if we do that well, they will remain highly motivated, but they'll become highly skilled. And these are our stars. These are our people who shine. Now, the challenge we have managing these individuals is, have they just arrived in there? Are they just about to leave that box? And they are our talent. So if we're not looking after it and talking about our culture, etc., these people will be poached, or they'll go elsewhere during COVID. So let's make sure we keep them highly motivated and highly skilled and on tune with the business. The reason we don't give these people much time is because they're self-starters usually, and all our efforts typically go on these bottom 2 boxes. So if we look at low skill, low motivation, well, you shouldn't have any in your business right now, but you might have this right now because actually there's a whole bunch of new skills and I'm not motivated. So just be aware that it doesn't mean you have to release them. It means actually you have to pay attention to that and work out, how do we motivate them and how do we give them the skills? But the real challenge normally in business is this last box is, I've got whole bunch of highly skilled individuals, but they're not motivated. So they become the fly in the ointment. It's presenteeism. It's actually, they're the terrorists in your organization if you're not careful. But right now, you might have highly skilled people who aren't very motivated sitting at home wondering what the hell is going on. So we need to address this motivation and have a strategy for it. So I'm going to start looking at that. And if we get this right with this person in the right-hand bottom corner box, then they'll move up to highly motivated, highly skilled. If we find that actually we can't address their motivations right now, they might move across to the left-hand side where we can remotivate them with something else and give them new skills, which is the top left-hand corner. If we do nothing, they'll drift off to the bottom left. But worse still, if we don't address the low motivation, these people will leave your organization and they'll be headhunted by companies that will motivate them. So we need to address this motivational issue. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense. So the next thing is, how much does a lack of motivation cost your organization? So if we don't get this motivation right, this is what's going to happen typically. Staff turnover is going to increase. So we'll find that actually we're recruiting people into an organization where we're mis-selling. So even when you recruit someone, there's a cost to it. 7,500 upwards is typical. So they might join and then realize they've been mis-sold and leave. So we don't really want that. Productivity will deteriorate if they're not motivated. So it'll be 16 times less productive based on the Pareto principle. Absence rates will go through the roof. So we'll have low morale, energy and self-esteem issues creeping in. You'll be constantly recruiting to replace ads, agency and selection processes. Those who are now not off sick will be firefighting. Customers will notice the poor service. You'll then be defending your reputation. You will then bring in a trainer. I'm a trainer. It's not a training issue. You will then bring in a consultant for 3 times as much as the trainer to pretty much do the same as a trainer. Consultant's paradise. You'll still be left with a problem because it's a cultural motivational issue, not a training issue or a consultancy issue. And then your net asset value of your organization will deteriorate and you'll get this blame despair culture. So typically that's what you see in an organization when motivation is low, and some of this will be happening in COVID right now. Now, sickness levels, it'll be difficult to determine now with home working, but they'll go through the roof if you haven't got it right. So in currently 17 days in the public sector sickness and 7 days in private, an average of 750 per day in lost productivity. Not going to dwell on this one too much because it's a moving beast right now. So let's look at organizations where motivation's really good. So you'll find greater productivity, more profit for your organization, happier culture, better engagement with your customers, greater retention of your talent, massive savings on recruitment because you haven't got the churn going on. So an effective appraisal reward systems in place. So you might not have that, but look at that. And less absenteeism and sickness you'd expect. A couple you might not expect, less job absence and less theft because people are more focused. So this was a study done for the NHS, but not on the NHS a few years back, on what it will look like if you get engagement right. And on operating income, with engagement, you are going to increase your profits. With disengagement, you're going to decrease your profits. And there's a variance of about 50%. So it's really worthwhile making sure your staff are productive and engaged. So the question begs, can you afford not to be engaged? Now, the problem we have with motivation is there's no language, no description, no measurement. So it's difficult to have a plan, an action, or an outcome. So I'm now going to give a plan, an action, and an outcome. Again, so this is quite relevant. So how will we motivate our employees during COVID-19? Because the whole landscape has changed. So we're going to look at what motivates people. How do we describe it? How do we measure it? How do we monitor it? And how do we maximize it? So I'm going to give you the 9 motivations now. Here they are. And I'm going to talk you through. And you'll see at the top of the screen, I put pick your top 3 and one that's your lowest. I want you to think about what drives you right now as much as your staff and which ones don't drive you. And when we look at the lowest will be the one that when you see it in another person winds you up the most. So you have to be aware that all these motivations are important, but there will be motivations that wind you up. And when you're working with that individual, because you'll have to, you need to bear in mind that it's the lowest. Right, so let's take you through. There are 3 relationship, 3 achievement, and 3 growth. And this comes from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so it's a moving beast. It doesn't stay static. So let's look at Defender. If you have Defender, if Defender is one of your top motivations, you would seek security, predictability, and stability. You want, you don't like surprises. So right now, you're not going to enjoy COVID because it's full of change. You like order, you like routine, okay? And you're going to be quite resistant to change. Second one is friend. Friend is all about fulfilling relationships at work. So again, we've taken all of that away. Everybody's been sent home. They're in isolation. So you've only got your spouse to talk to, or your dog, or your cat. So actually, this is going to really impact the friend in a negative way unless we build a community for them where they can talk and be involved. Star is all about recognition. So these people like to shine. Well, if they've got no one to shine to, it's not going to work. So they're looking for the ability to be recognized. So let's build some of that for them. And I'm going to talk about strategies for this in a minute. I'm just talking through the 9 motivations at the moment. Now we have the 3 achievement motivators. If you have director as your main drive and motivation, then you'll seek power, control, and influence. Well, if you can imagine the control freak in you that wants to control, and all your staff have gone home and you have no idea what they're doing, as a manager or an owner of a business, this is going to be really difficult times for you because you're looking for control, and you're going to have to switch your thinking to maybe looking at output, not time, and looking to trust, not control. So some real interesting things for leadership around the director. The builder seeks power, it seeks money, material satisfaction. So they love bonuses, they love commercialities. Right now, all of that's been stripped pretty much for most businesses. So how do they earn their money? How do they make sure they have that above average standard of living when they've been sent home to work, and actually everybody's less productive and we've got less clients to deal with potentially? So it's going to have a serious impact on the builder. The expert, these people love to learn and grow and demonstrate their expertise. So we've got to enable them to demonstrate their expertise. You might put them in charge of the COVID program for gleaning information to give to the business so they can become an expert in COVID as a way of using that motivation with that member of staff. Then we come to the 3 growth motivators. So we have the creator. The creator wants to innovate. They want to do different things. Every day's been different. So these people are going to cope with COVID quite well. I quite like change. I'm okay with it. I'm used to it. So every day being different projects, I like it. So they're not going to be so much of a problem. Spirit, they want freedom and autonomy. Well, they've got bucket loads now. They've been sent home. So they've got all the freedom they want, which is wonderful. So independent thinking is their key thing. So with this individual, you give them clear, concise instructions and probably just leave them alone to get on with it and have a reporting process put in place. And then the searcher, these individuals, they want to make a difference on a day-to-day basis. So how are they making a difference when they're sitting at home isolated? Well, we need to get them talking and making a difference with clients and with staff. So there's the 9 motivators. I'm going to give you some stories around this so you can see how it works. So if you have a team and you have the defender and the creator talking about growing the business, you can quite clearly see that the creator is going to bust the company and the defender is going to save it. So a sensible conversation should ensue around a sensible solution between the 2. If you had the director managing the spirit, you've got total conflict because the director wants to control and the spirit wants freedom. So you need to have an understanding. Actually, what I'm going to, so I've got an example of this. I've got a company I work with where the owner of the business is a director, likes power, control, and influence. His PA is a spirit. He gives her a piece of work, and 15 minutes later, he rings her up asking how she's getting on with it. So we had to have an agreement. Sue, you're going to tell Stuart actually when this work's going to get done. And Stuart, you can't ring her in between times. So there are ways of working these. Now you can imagine the friend ringing up the spirit also. So the friend who likes to have a chat rings the spirit up and he doesn't want to have a chat. So you're going to have some conflicts in these motivations and how you manage people. Now, just to show you very quickly that this is not about skill, this is all about energy and motivation. I'm going to give you an example of a barrister that came to see me. His top 3 motivations were creator, spirit, and searcher. He came to me and he said, look, I'm not feeling very motivated. And I asked him some questions. I said, how much creativity do you have right now? He said, I have no creativity. I have a very rigid process I have to follow. Okay, I said, fine. I said, how much freedom do you have, spirit? He said, I have no freedom in my role at all. I've got all these cases lined up. You know, I'm back to back with work. I've got no space, no freedom. And I said, how much of a difference do you make on a day-to-day basis? Search. He said, I don't enjoy this part. This is the worst one of all. I get known criminals off. I absolutely hate it. So you kind of have, I've got a bit of background noise coming from somewhere. Thanks. So yeah, so right now, if we took his skill set to a headhunter, they'd put him back into the same job. But now, actually, he's a landscape gardener. He has all the creativity he wants, he has all the freedom he wants, and he can make a difference. So this isn't about your skill or your position, it's about your energy. And right now, with COVID, it's going to be all over the place. One final example on this before we move on is I did a talk to a group in November last year. Everybody did their motivational map. We were a peer group, so we were chatting through the maps, and one of these guys said, my top motivation is defender, and everybody in the room said, that's no way you're a defender, you're a real creator, spirit searcher. He said, no, right now, because I'm going through a really tricky divorce, which is costing me a lot of money. I can't buy a house because I'm not sure what's going on with Brexit. I'm in this quandary, and I'm not sure how my business is going to survive. I'm defender right now. I'm very security conscious, not what I was previously. And this will be happening in COVID right now. There'll be a lot of businesses that move from builder, where it's all about making money, to actually button down the hatches, defender, and get through this. So the whole energy of a business can change. Right, I'm going to move on now. So I've asked you actually to work it out, pick your top 3 and your lowest. And the reason for that is we're going to do an exercise later. And I sent some things through, so hopefully you'd have picked your top 3. All I want you to do in the personal motivational order on the right-hand side there is write your top 3 down. I'm not even going to get you to score them, just write top 1 on the left-hand corner of this personal motivational order, write the 3 motivations, and we'll come back to that later. Right, so now if you look at all of this, if we don't know what motivates staff, how are we going to motivate, inspire, and reward staff? It's a bit of a Rubik's Cube situation. So let's take you through the 9 motivations in more detail. So if you happen to have defender as a motivator, you want job security, you want clear roles, regular, accurate information, continuity, order. And the way that we can manage this, if we've got these individuals, is to give clear, regular communication. No surprises for the defender. They like continuity. This is why the daily updates are so important. And they need process. Okay, so support through periods of change, consider the risks of no change, regular reviews, link their goals to security. You need to reassure the defender going through this, or if you are a defender, you need to feel reassured. Friend. Obviously, this individual has had their whole world turned upside down. They've been sent home, so they need to have a feeling of belonging. They need those relationships. So we need to build a community for these people fast and a way of them talking. So this may be the person that communicates the company message, or talks to people, or gets the teams together and runs the teams, or rings up and gives people quick chats. That might be the way to help them, because they want to be involved. They want the personalized approach, and they want a good working social environment. So if friend is yours, it's about getting away from the cabin fever, the isolation, and having a community, however what you do there. Now the star, these people want public recognition, being noticed. So opportunities for awards, so involvement in projects would be the key one I'd look at here. How can they be involved in projects? How can they run this? How they can maybe be the star of that project? And again, regular reviews for these individuals. Consult and ask their opinions, because they really want to shine. They want that recognition. So these could be the individuals. If you look at the bottom, there's always a value for all of these: business presentations and marketing. They might be the person who sends the message out to the world. Next, we come to director. So we've talked a little bit about director. They want control. They want to be stretched. They want to be critical decision makers. So there's lots of things they want. So this is all about giving them responsibility. As a leader, you might give them more responsibility. They need to know they've got control. So how they get that could be through systems and processes, putting those in place. They need the role title. They need to be representing the department. So really it's about giving these individuals responsibility. And the best way down the bottom there is managing resources and control. Put them in charge of the resources and control section of the day-to-day. Next, we have builder. Right now, this is going to be impacted quite negatively for a lot of people. They were focusing on lots of things. Their pension pots may not be as good as they were. So right now, it's devastating. There's no money coming in. There's no way of earning bonuses. So we've got to probably look to training, giving them training that will lead to more money later, and linking bonuses in some way or rewards around money in some way in the futuristically, and putting that promise in place. But what they'll be really good at is the commercials in your organization, increasing and repeat business. They'll be the people that will go out and get more business for you. So use them in that capacity. Next, we have the expert. The expert is someone who likes to learn and grow and actually likes to demonstrate their expertise. So things like this, training and development, being a mentor to others, having a mentor themselves, ambitious targets, all good. But this person could be also, as we said earlier, be the person that is the expert on COVID for you, does all the research, finds it out, becomes the go-to person around COVID. But just make them the go-to person around the industry knowledge, and make them the expert, and they'll be happy. Next, we have the creator. So, okay, this individual likes change. They like variety. They like solving problems. So they're kind of coming to their own right now in COVID, because it's all about generating new ideas, new ways of doing things, new practices. But the danger is they'll love developing these things, but they won't like sitting in the things they developed. They don't like following process. So they'll design process, but they probably won't follow it. So get them involved in the development team, the COVID team, the new ideas, the different ways of working, because they love cutting edge technology and ideas down the bottom there. So that's their value to the team. Then we have the spirit. The spirit wants to freedom and autonomy. Well, they're going to get bucket loads of that right now at home, working on their own. So make sure you share the company vision with them. You delegate responsibility, but you empower them. Don't keep on their back. Have they done it? Just set them clear guidelines, leave them alone, avoid micromanaging these individuals, and reward them with the freedom they deserve, but just set clear goals and specific goals so they know what they have to achieve. And again, it's their independent thinking and originality down the bottom there that's going to be a real value to the team and the business. And lastly, searcher. Most of us will have this in our profile. We like to make a difference. We like to be significant. So we have to have feedback on how we're doing. So this is about the regular day-to-day management, also the vision of the organization being communicated, but also how they're making a difference and how they can make a difference is key. So involving them in significant projects, getting them to get feedback from clients or feedback from individuals. Again, it's all about feedback, positive or negative. They need feedback. So their value to the team is high value outcomes for clients, staff, and business. So that's the 9 motivations. I'm going to move on to the energy around this now, because it's quite different. So I've put the motivations at the bottom of the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. But if predominantly you're creative spirit searcher, and we have a way of working this out normally, but I can't do that on this call. But if you're predominantly creative spirit searcher, you'll typically be quite fast paced, very comfortable with change. And this tends to be a leadership, and you're looking to the future. You tend to be leaders and you move very, very quickly. Now, that's complete opposite to the greens. If you're more defender, friend, star, you tend not to like change. You tend to be resistant. It's all about the people, and it's all about past orientation. So you're resistant to change. So what happens is the blues have all the ideas. They cascade they cascade all the change, and then the greens can't cope with it, and you disconnect staff. And then the red, which is typically a management trait, has to sort it all out. So blue is quite high risk takers, fast paced. Red is calculated risk, because they've got to take the ideas of the crazy leaders and make them work on a day-to-day basis. And then green tends to be employee. They tend to like things as they are, don't like change, and quite resistant. So this energy will be flowing. So if you are a leadership team and you've got to make a lot of changes, slow down, consult the greens and the reds, involve them, and drip feed it at a pace they can deal with it. Otherwise, you are going to have a lot of disconnect. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm now going to move to this in relation to the change curve we said earlier. So you can see the greens are probably going to be at the start of that change curve. They don't like change. They're going to be in denial. They're going to get frustrated because they like systems and processes, and there aren't any. The reds will be calculated risks, so they'll be having to manage and put these systems in place and trying to make it work. And the blues will be moving rapidly with all their ideas, quite visionary, but with no systems and processes to back it up. So you can see the energies that are going on, and it's just a case of understanding that you're dealing with different levels of energy and pace when you deal with individuals. And the reason for that is this diagram, because it's all based on Maslow. So right now, if you're searcher, spirit, creator, you tend to be comfortable with change and you move quite fast. But if you're down the bottom, and there's no judgment around this because I don't think this is a triangle, I think there's a series of blocks, and I'll tell you why. You're uncomfortable with change and you adapt slowly to change. So we need to understand this as leaders. Now, what will happen right now is what happened to that individual I was speaking about, that was going through a costly divorce and his business was suffering and he couldn't buy a house. He moved from the top of this model to the bottom, defender, where it is all about button down the hatches, get through. There'll be a lot of that going on now with COVID right now. So what you find is you can't give the big rewards right now, but luckily most of the motivations I've described are pretty straightforward and cost no money at all. And when you're managing people, it's really easy to do. So let's look at it. You've got the three that cost you money, which are builder, director, expert, because you will have to pay people more, you have to give them more responsibility, and you will have to train them. Well, you can't pay them more now, but you can give them more responsibility and you can train them, which could lead to more money later. So it's going to be hard for the builder, but training may be the answer. It's easy to give responsibility and maybe reward later with money. The next three are quite easy. It's about support, it's about communication, it's about awards and status. And the final three, even easier again. It's really about praise, reward for innovation and autonomy. So we've got some key rewards in place and some ways of understanding how to deal with our staff. Next, what I did was pre-COVID, I actually worked out a motivational action plan for individuals and teams. So this is a 2.5-hour workshop, which is now a Zoom workshop I can do with teams. And the kinds of questions we ask here are, does your current role fulfill your top 3 motivations? How can you or your manager enhance your current role? And how can you enhance others' roles? And finally, have you shared your motivations with your team members? So we cover all of this in a team 2.5-hour workshop, which is very interactive. But importantly for you right now, I asked you to write your top 3 motivations in the left-hand corner of this box I sent you. So what I'm going to do now is get you to score those motivations to see how motivated you are right now. And for that, I'm going to show you a completed version of this. So here's Joe Bloggs, company XYZ. His motivation is searcher, expert, creator. I simply asked him if searcher, which is all about making a difference, doing worthwhile things, is so important to you. Out of 10, how much of that is getting fed? How much of that motivation is getting fed right now? And he scored it 7 out of 10. I asked the same question about his expertise. You want to be an expert and you want learning opportunities. Right now, out of 10, how much of that is getting fed? He scored it 7 out of 10. And then I asked him about creativity. I said, how much innovation and creativity do you have in your current role right now? He scored it 7 again. So he's 70% motivated. There's a mathematical equation for this. So we take the 7 and times it by 3, gives you a score of 21. Add the 2 7s, gives you 35 out of 50. And then you times it by 2 just to see what your current motivation is. But more importantly, we now need to look at how do we move the 7 to a 10. So we start to explore, if you were totally motivated and engaged and felt your searcher was being totally motivated and engaged, what would have to happen? So what would have to happen for you to feel that you're getting regular feedback and making a difference? And his answers were to explore opportunities to make more of a difference with clients and staff. So they're coming up with the answers, not you. To be more of an expert in this organization, what would need to happen? He wanted to put time aside, 2 hours a week, to make sure he could actually learn and grow in the job. And creativity, he wanted to be an innovator. So right now he would be on the COVID team, problem solving, and that would boost his motivation. So it's an action plan for your motivations based on what your motivations are, and coming from them, not for you. So you're not second guessing. They're telling you how they'd like to engage around their motivations. Now, what we did with this individual is we were able now to plot him, because I have a way of working at the skill level for an individual out of 100% and the motivation out of 100%. So this individual was 70% motivated prior to the work we did, and 50% skill because he was a new manager. We then up motivated him and upskilled him, and then you can see he's now a rising star in the organisation. So it's about harnessing the motivations and the skills of individuals through COVID. That's really key. Now, I talked about teams. I can produce a team grid. This is a team grid we have here. So we can work out who's going to conflict with who's going to synergize with each other, what's missing in a team, and the appetite for change. So the graph immediately below shows me how this team will cope with change. When we do a team map, it tells me how they'll cope with change. Below that, we know the red, the green, the red, and the blue. We've talked about that. We can work out who's individually is going to be able to cope with change and who isn't. And then actually, when we look at the team grid here, we can see who's in conflict with who. So if you look at the builder column, you'll see someone's got 32 out of 40 for builder. That's really important to them. But actually, there's two people in the team that don't want to know why he's banging on about money and commercialities all the time, because they're in conflict with him. Equally, we can go to the back end of the map and we can see actually there's nobody. Star is all about recognition and shouting about what you do. Nobody's shouting about this business. Nobody's taking director, nobody's taking control, and nobody's talking to each other because friend is really low. And because friend is low and nobody's talking to each other and spirit's high, do we have a bunch of individuals here that aren't a team, that just want to do their own thing? And how can we make them a team? So there'll be all of these sort of challenges that will come out, and then we can see their motivational scores and how motivated they are on the right hand side too. So we can work on their motivations to either keep them high or make them high. So hopefully you'll understand very quickly what that looks like. So now I'm going to move on to quick wins. So if you know what your top 3 motivations are, you can look down through this. And if you want to motivate yourself, you can go, right, let's say most people have searcher. How can I add more value today? If you're a creator, how can I be more of an innovator? If you're an expert, how can I be more of a specialist today? And if you're trying to manage staff and you know their motivations, it goes to the left-hand side. Give them more responsibility. They're a director, they're a defender, ensure that them of a predictable and secure future. So you've got solutions here for working with the motivations. And I will make sure you get a copy of these slides because I'm going through, I know, quite quickly. The next thing is quick wins. So there'll be fears around all of this. For every motivation, there'll be a fear, but there'll be a best strategy too. So let's just pick a couple. Let's pick builder, lack of financial reward, and bonuses. So link goals and actions to the financial rewards. Let's go director. So not being in control or lack of responsibility. Give them clear responsibility. So there's clear ways of working with these motivations to make sure people are being utilized properly when they work from home and are feeling their motivations being listened to and harnessed. And also the do's and the don'ts, quite obviously. If you're a director, if you've got a director profile you're working with, give them responsibility. Don't remove responsibility. If you're an expert, give them an opportunity to learn and demonstrate their expertise. Don't take it away. Quite obvious stuff, really, as we go through. Friend, enable them to be socially interactive. Friend, don't isolate them or remove them from social interaction. So you've got some clear strategies and you'll get these slides so you can have a bit more time to study them. So also what will be happening with COVID is there'll be a lot of change going on, as we know, so that you're redefining your business. There'll be new opportunities, new ways of working. So we can kind of look at these motivations and go, right, well, okay, who's going to be best at doing what given their motivations going forwards? So if we're trying to find new ways of working, well, the creator is going to be best at that. If we're going to find best ways of networking, it will be the friend. If we need to learn new stuff, it will be the expert. If we need more management of resources and control, it will be the director. If we need people to work more independently, the spirits will be the people. So we can start to redesign our new world in COVID around these motivations for individuals. And it's quite clear it's simply not possible to stay motivated without feedback. No one is comfortable operating in a vacuum. Fundamentally, this is a result of the way our brains are wired. When you undertake a goal, you are going to need frequent feedback. So the message here is feedback is the food of champions. Your staff right now need lots of feedback. They need to be stretched. They need to be involved. The action plan that I developed prior to COVID was a 90-day action plan. It was for individuals and teams, and it kind of looked like this. So we'd do a motivational map, we'd talk it through, we'd create an action plan, and then we would do it again 90 days later. And in between, we'd have this flight plan analogy where we would touch base with individuals and we bring people back into control if they were moving in a different direction. Well, in COVID-19 right now, with everybody working from home, this is almost like a daily thing. Let's check in on the motivations. Let's check they're happy. Let's check they're not deviating. Let's check there's nothing going wrong. So constant communication with your staff is the key. And evidence will suggest you need great leadership and you need action plans right now. And what I designed prior to COVID probably applies just as well now. Get your leadership right, get your management right, and actually look at the motivations of your staff ongoing so that you don't lose them through COVID or they feel underutilized and start looking elsewhere. Now, when I train individuals in this, I take the champion through it first of all, and I license them in motivational mapping, and then we train the managers so they can use the process, and then we introduce it to the staff, and then we begin the appraisals. So this can be done in COVID equally well, and if this does interest you, please do let me know. I'm not here to sell you this now, I'm here to give you ideas today. And what I do with companies, I've got 2 or 3 companies using this right now in the South Coast. Ellis Jones is one of them. So basically, we put this program into Ellis Jones, this appraisal process, 90-day appraisal process. And when Lexil, their legal practice accrediting body, came in, they thought it was fantastic. So it works very well for legal, and it gives you a tick in the box with Lexil. I've got Herb UK in the New Forest that produce shampoos, but now hand sanitizers because they're versatile themselves across. They're using it. So if you need to speak to any companies around how we're using this right now, just let me know. Just quickly, it was based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's based on Edgar Schein's career anchors and a personality profile called Enneagrams, and it has an ISO accreditation. So it's a very well thought through tool. James Sale is the founder of Motivational Maps. I work very closely with him. It's a brilliant tool. It's online. It takes 12 minutes to do. It looks like this. You get a fantastic report. It's very colourful, very interesting. You get individual, team, group, managers reports and organizational reports, and we have it in 6 languages now. And it's designed to tell you a lot about you, a lot about your staff, and give you lots of strategies to cope and manage with your staff through this difficult period. So as I just reiterate from this presentation, you can take your team through it if you want, or I can take you as an individual through it. Both can be done by Zoom. So if this does interest you, just let me know by email or phone me. I've got some other tools I use. So I have a licensing tool, as I said. I have the 90-day motivational action plan, and the 4-day leadership program will take you through all the 8 points in that COVID wheel we did earlier. And we do that over 2 months. So typically all of this can be done by Zoom. If you want to enter into a conversation around this with me, please do later. And I've got some other things. I'll send these slides. So really, I'm trying to get through to some questions now. That's why I'm moving quite quickly. I use this for employee engagement, personal development, management development, team building, recruitment, sales, and career development. So it's got lots of applications, and all of these will be relevant right now. So this is what Richard Branson would say.